Welcome everyone. Good morning. Welcome to this CAS 360 webinar. Today's webinar is on the report screen, the insights and best practices. Uh, I am your host, Christopher Banks, and I'll be taking you through the report screen today. So, just before we get started, just a little bit of housekeeping. So, as we've mentioned, and you've probably seen many times before, there's no chat function, and you will not be able to talk. You're in listen-only mode. However, you do have a Q&A, which you can use to send in questions, and either myself or one of my colleagues that is currently also within the webinar will be able to see those questions and then answer them. So if I don't see them, one of my colleagues will certainly send a response back to you. You can send them those questions throughout the webinar. However, there should be time at the end of the webinar for you to send in any questions where I will just focus exclusively on questions and answers. Another thing, this webinar is recorded. Uh, so all the webinars in the webinar week have been will be recorded. You can access this either via going to the bgl.com/education, and there will be a list of all the webinars that you can currently enroll in. Or if they've already been completed, they'll have both the slides and the YouTube link for you to go rewatch those videos. We also have a link that should be posted any second on the directly to the YouTube playlist. So you don't have, if you just want to jump in, select one of the videos from the playlist, you can start watching it there. So we're past the halfway point in the CAS 360 Education Week. If you missed utilizing BGL ID for client verification, that should be uploaded to YouTube now, so you should be able to access it. I very much recommend it. That had quite a lot of participants, nearly 200. So it was a very, very popular webinar. I very much recommend going back if you did miss it. Otherwise, we have today, right now we've got the report screen. Later today, we'll have annual reviews. We have had, over the course of this week, a few questions come in to do with annual reviews. So if you've asked any of them, I recommend checking that one out because that will be going directly through some of the issues those questions discussed. Then we have managing trust tomorrow, and then finally, one of the other webinars I recommend is the enhancing compliance with BGL Smart Docs, as that is a relatively new feature that will definitely help your workflow. So, as has been mentioned many times this week, it's the CAS 360 webinar week. We've only got a couple of days left. However, if you did miss any of the Simple Fund 360 or Simple Invest, as they were prior weeks, as I mentioned earlier, they'll be on the bglcorp.com/education, where, as mentioned, you can either click a link to download go to the YouTube video link, and you have the option to download the slides should you wish. Okay, so on today's agenda, we'll be looking at the report screen. I'll be showing you, while showing you the report screen, I'll be showing you a couple of useful reports, and then we'll discuss how tags can greatly benefit your use of the report screen. So if we jump out of here, we go to CAS 360, and as usual, CAS 360 will load you up into the company screen. Reports, similar to freeform documents, it's just on the main toolbar, just on the left here. So we click that, and straight away we're brought to the full report screen. And you have all the reports that can be generated. We have a really good question here just before we get stuck in. That's about the YouTube videos. Will they stay up for a while or will they be removed? As far as I'm aware, I don't think there's any plan to remove them. Last time I checked, we still have the 2022 Education Week videos still up, so they should stay on indefinitely. So you can come back anytime you wish. I don't know whether the education page will be removed at some point, but the playlist for the 2024 Education Weeks should remain, and so you can, as long as you just head to the BGL YouTube channel, you should be able to find all the videos and all the webinars that we've done over this past month. So with the report screen, to start like generating a report, it's as simple as clicking uh, a report from the list. So here we're going to look at, this is one of the little useful reports I recommend looking at. It's the annual review listing. So this is really useful because it lets us check, it lets us spit out, depending on, it lets you select individually how many companies you need to check their annual reviews, whether they're over, like whether you've got the annual reviews overdue, whether you've received it, stuff like that. But it collates it into a nice printable PDF or Excel spreadsheet. So you can filter by the report order. You can select the annual review year. You can also change the annual review date. You can see here you also have the option to select the agent. So if you only want certain specified agents or companies that are under a certain agent, you can just filter that here. You have the report date. You can also choose by the company status. So if you don't want any deregistered companies, deselect that, and now we won't get the CAS Level 2 training fund. You have the annual review status options. So whether it will include uh, whether we've received it or not in there. And then the labels is related to the tags I mentioned earlier in the agenda. So we'll look at that later. But for now, we'll just do all agents, export PDF, and our PDF opens. See here, we've got all the companies. We've even got the labels here. Review date, the review status, and the debt balance. So that's good to that's really handy to check to see if your review you haven't been able to lodge, and so now it's overdue. What the debt balance is will increase. So we can see here that we haven't received any of the annual reviews. So we can jump back here and see that for majority of the companies, we haven't received an annual review. Two of them, I do not believe it's the annual review date, so it's fine. We have one that it does say we've received it, but it's from 2017, and we left the date. We didn't bother to change the annual review date, so that was for the 2024 financial year, which is why we haven't received it. But if we jump back, another really, really important report is the company debt listing, as it shows it gives you a nice list of the companies that have debt. The main benefit for reports doesn't look super impressive here when I have 7 companies. But if you're a firm that has hundreds to thousands, being able to click reports and just see a list of all the companies that currently have some kind of debt is incredibly important for staying on top and making sure that none of them become overdue. Unfortunately, our firm here has no data, but I have managed to get a firm that does. So here we've got three companies with some somewhat interesting names. I can't click, you would go through, make sure you got any filters, click export as. Can't do it here because I'm logged into this firm currently. However, if we bring up that Adobe PDF, you can see here we have the report that I generated earlier. So we can see the total amount of debt. I did not notice this when I generated. That's very funny. Um, Interesting amount of debt. You have your current debt, the amount after 30 days, the amount after 60 days, and the amount after 90 days. But that this can be used. It's not as useful as I said for the firm I'm currently in, which only we cleaned it up, so there's a reduced amount of company, so it doesn't look super impressive. However, for you guys who most likely have a lot more than 7 companies, the report screen can be really handy because it just lets you collate a whole bunch of data into one file, which makes it a lot easier to read. And the best part is because it's a PDF, you can print it, which you can't really print the company screen. Next report that's really nice to have is the document status listing report. So again, click in. You have filters. If you've got a firm with multiple jurisdictions, you'll have that there. Otherwise, if you only have the one jurisdiction, don't worry about it. Select your filters, the document status, and when we get to labels, we'll go through that again. Select a couple of companies, export to PDF, and you can see here that this, compared to the other reports we've had, this report is quite a bit larger because essentially it's just formatting. It's taking what we have on uh, the documents page, showing us what when the due date is for the relevant form, the current penalty, and what the actual document status is, and when that was last updated. So you can see here we have a form 484. It was due for over 4 years ago. So ASIC isn't looking too pleased with us. And we've only prepared it. We haven't even sent it to the client. So another great one is the register of members and shareholders. Because again, you could always go directly into the uh, individual company, but then that would only give you the individual company's shareholders. However, with the report, you have the option to select multiple. So now you can generate and show multiple different shareholders. Let's get you all their individual registers at once, so you don't have to go through and generate them individually. And so we can see here for BGL Incorp Company, the historical register of members. So we had John David Brown. He acquired some. Then We also have John David Brown, where it was beneficially held by Margaret Ann Brown. However, there was a shared change of beneficial ownership back to John David Brown, and then he's had recorded another allotment. And so this can let you generate multiple registers at once. Um, we have a question here from Jane. Hi, is there any way you can bolt select the companies rather than tick on each one? It depends on the actual report itself. So the annual review listing report, because it's a listing report, it does have the option just to select all at once, because it's usually about what data the report is providing. So because it's just providing uh, what the annual review status is, there's not much data that it has to gather, or there's not much data included in the report. So you can select all of them at once, and then it just says uh, whether we've received it or not, and what the status date is. But for something like the register of members or shareholders, because you're downloading, if I have the zip folder here, you're downloading an individual register file for each company. That's quite a bit more involved, so you have to select each individual uh, company. However, ah, you do have the option here to download these as a combined file here. So if we click that and download as combined file, I completely missed that. Now we just have the entire registry of members for all and slash shareholders for all companies combined in the one. All right, one of the really important reports as well is the address usage. So here we have all the addresses out of our 210 addresses currently shown within our firm in CAS 360. I just want to know what 101 Fake Street is, or what 101 Fake Street is currently attached to. So we're going to generate it. So then it's just going to spit out for 101 Fake Street. We've got the BGL Family Trust, one of the companies, the Training Trust, and we have Daniel Pham here. It's his contact address, residential address. That's not correct. Daniel Pham shouldn't be attached to this address. So the benefit is here. Now that we've seen that he's actually got the wrong address attached, we can go to the multiple changes, which was a previous webinar on, I believe, Tuesday. But you'll be able to find it in the YouTube playlist or in the BGL/education. And so we come to the contract address change. Type in Daniel Pham, and you can see, as we saw in the uh, address pay usage report, he's still got 101 Fake Street, right in east. So then we come here And he actually lives at my work. So we select 606 to 608 Hawthorne Road. And then as mentioned before in uh, which would have been mentioned when we did multiple changes, you do have the option here to select company business and slash business address is the same. And then you can also have it apply to any other contacts. So you can see here the BGL Training Trust. If we toggle that on, that would also change the BGL Training Trust's address. We're not going to bother though, we just want to change Daniel's. So we click proceed. And then we have our changed address. And from there, we could prepare forms. But and so instead of having to go into each and every individual contact to check whether they have the right address, just generate whichever relevant address usage report. Just have us look through, reconcile all the different addresses, and confirm whether they are correct or not. All right, we have a question here. Um, Unfortunately, this isn't currently relevant to the current webinar. However, I do have good news. The question to do with annual review comparison, that'll be covered in the 3 p.m. webinar today. So you should be that will the person hosting that will go through step by step how to address the comparison report being failed. Then I'm sorry I cannot answer it in this one, but it's just unrelated to the topic. But it will literally be at 3 p.m. today. So excited to see you there then. All right. The last report that I think is really useful for all of you guys is the ID verification status listing report. As I mentioned earlier when discussing the or I'll just jump in and answer this question quickly. Is the report that shows the due date a form is due to be lodged? Yes, we went through this bit before. It's the document status. Select your companies, and if I can get the taskbar up to pull up the document status, you can see that it has the due date for every single form. So for a form here was due 4 years ago. We're taking an enormous penalty because we didn't lodge it in time. But that lets you select each company. So if you only need to see, hey, I know this company may have a penalty or two, just generate it for this company. Then you'll just get the list of forms for that company and where they are up to in terms of what needs to be done next. So you can see for this one, we have the $2,000 penalty. We've only prepared it. We haven't even sent it to the client to be signed. But you also have down here that this one here that only has an $800 penalty it's been sent to Fusign, and Fusign has sent that to the client, and so they could just sign it. But then we also have here this 484, which has been returned from Fusign with the signature from the client. So all for that one, all we'd have to do is go and lodge. Back to what I was saying, the ID verification status listing report. This one is for somewhat topical after yesterday's BGL ID. This will show you the status of all your contacts that you've done a ID check with, and then show whether they've verified, failed, pending, whether you've had to manually pass them or manually fail them, refer or mixed. You can see here it's automatically deselected none. That way it will only show any of the contacts that have actually attempted a uh, verification. If you turn that on, it's going to show in all 132 individuals, with majority of them we've never, at least in this firm, it's never actually been attempted. So I'm going to leave that off and instead just generate it. So you can see here we just have a couple of different contacts here that have attempted. So we can see Aaron, which I believe was shown uh, yesterday and used as an example. You can see that unfortunately his verification result has failed. We can see a duplicate contact has been verified. So that might be useful to go, oh wait, we have two. Double check, merge them together. Mary test 14 was verified. Stacy has been manually passed, and then Warren has failed. Here's check. I can see Andre is answering it, but since I have the report screen up on screen, we do have a director ID report. I don't know if this firm has any data, so I'm opening this. In anticipation. Unfortunately, at this stage, it doesn't look like this firm does, so I'm not going to bother showing it. It just has the company and then the partners and managers, or the company number, and then the partners and managers. But there's no all this there for this firm anyway is the uh, company numbers. Okay, so what we're going to look at next is we've gone through all the reports I think are quite useful. However, we're going to look at labels, or also known as tags. So you have down here on the company screen labels. You have, like, for example, here you have no digital signing. We also have one called training. We also have one that's not used anymore that was to do with RegTech. You should, to add a new tag or label, just click the little pencil, type in the name, and we're going to add myself. Then you have two options. You can either come up here, click the pencil, and then you can also just uh, add a brand new label, or you can come in and add a already created label. The other option is to manage labels themselves. So this will give you a little pop-up, and you can select one of the labels that has been created. So if we select Chris Banks, you can see I have the option here to edit the name. So if I misspelled my own name and decided actually I don't want a shortened version, I want my full title, my full first name, we can change that there. And now it's updated. And then it shows which labels have been attached. So actually I'm in charge of all four of these companies. Hit save. And then we've got my labels attached. If for whatever reason we needed to remove it, it's the same thing. Click on the pop-up, click manage labels, and then from here you would just deselect one of the companies, and now I'm no longer attached to the BGL nominees company. So the benefit of this is if we jump to reports, this, as I said, have mentioned earlier, it's not so useful. We only have 7 companies, but if you did have thousands and you needed to generate an annual review listing, however, myself, I'm not allowed to touch any of the companies that Andre and that isn't assigned to my tag. We could deselect all and then just select me, and now it's only got the companies that I am tag or my label is attached to. So that way you can essentially set almost like sort of permissions. It's not a full proper setting of permissions, so they would still technically, if they didn't just select their tag, be able to um they would still be able to select any, for example, here I've put Andre Jones, so I could select one of Andre's companies. However, as long as you remember to make sure that the user makes sure that they just select their own tag, you can then just it would then just come up with any of the tags or the any of the companies that have the relevant labels attached, and that way they don't generate a report that has any companies they shouldn't be that they shouldn't have they're not look like lodging annual reviews for in a sense.